Thank you very much. The Chairperson, our Vice Chancellor, General Milind Piris, is our Chair. Thank you very much for your kind introduction about me. And thank you for all who have been waiting for this last session in spite of their busy schedules. First of all, I would like to say that this is a joint paper between me and another professor from Canada. His name is Peter Voye. He is attached to the Department of Marketing Management actually, at the Odette School of Business in Canada. I also would recognize that this research has been supported by the KDU internal research grant system. The title of my paper is The Impact of Non-Rational Elements on Strategy and Warfare. First of all, I would like to introduce that the literature is full of arguments and concepts about decision making, strategy making, etc., etc. Therefore, the critics of war, strategy and intelligence argue the logic of war and its paradoxical nature are best understood through the study of military history. I reiterate, military history with basically cautious reference to personal experiences of the senior echelons, upper echelons of leadership who have been involved in warfare. So this is the interesting argument coming up. Prior to that, as a professor of management, I had a very clear idea about what is strategy from a management point of view. But when I look at that and looked at its implications on warfare and strategy, I thought the models that we use for rational decision making are not very applicable. Strategies of war cannot be studied accurately as in the case of a scientific analysis. Now, perhaps you may argue scientific analysis is a very straightforward one, very clear one, and the decision making should be up to date. The research also shows that the study of war is more of an art than a science. So with that in mind, I'm trying to develop a conceptual framework which is being tested now. So in introducing the General Clausewitz's basic argument, he has written quite a lot on rational and non-rational decision making. We can argue that the rational decision making is being handicapped or it's been constrained by various factors such as friction, uncertainty, chance, and many other non-rational variables such as psychological, moral, and creative forces. So what I argue about rational decision making is that it is a scientific analysis, step-by-step process, and it will be concluded in a very straightforward manner. The importance of employing and developing a systematic analysis of a problem followed by choice and implementation is a logical step-by-step methodology that is found in rational decision making. Herbert Simon Nobel Prize winner, and Henry Winsberg and Peter Klein argued that systematic analysis of problems is basically impossible, virtually impossible. Why can be addressed in a few minutes? Because the decision makers, strategists, have time pressures. They have internal and external factors affecting their decisions, their strategies, and also the ill-defined nature of many problems has been a reason for their inability to make good decisions. There's a concept in the literature which is called bounded rationality. It is coming from the Carnegie Mellon University. Simon Olsen, March, and others from the Carnegie Mellon University argue unilaterally that the circumstances are ambiguous, requiring social support, a perspective on what happens and what acceptance and agreement can be really misleading sometimes. I'm giving one example from the literature. Cuban Missile Crisis. The executive committee of the White House knew a problem was there, existed, but was unable to specify what goals, exact goals and objectives that they had in mind at the time of operations. It showed that rational procedures cannot be adapted to complex scenarios. So I was thinking about looking at a way of analyzing this less rational scenario. So bounded rationality perspective further associated with issues like intuition. Intuition is a very important aspect or factor which will have a significant impact on decision making. If I will have time, I will go to that. But I would like to argue managers use their intuition based on long experience with organizational issues to speed the decision-making process in reality. So I'm coming out with a model which illustrates how the rationality can be bounded in the sense limited, and how the actual decision-making at the battlefield or in an organizational decision-making process, particularly at the higher level, can be affected. So you can see there are many personal variables and also some other organizational variables which will have a significant impact on the decision-making process of any senior official or any manager of a corporation, etc., etc. Therefore, I'm going to argue, the thrust of the argument is that there are so many non-rational elements which will have an impact on our decision-making process. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to divide all these non-rational elements into some clusters. And I'm going to develop the questionnaire and the survey based on these 4 clusters. Basically, there is a lot written on the human perception, which can be defined as the inability of human beings to view their environment objectively. Now, a senior echelons who is at the battlefield, who is being supported by a group of other supportive officers, will not be able to look at the situation in a very rational way. The difficulty of accurate recognition constitutes one of the most serious sources of friction involved. by making things appear entirely different from what one had expected. So what are the examples I can take into account from the literature to develop this conceptual framework? I will introduce it in a minute. The limits of different ways of addressing issues, particularly rational analysis in strategy and war, could be illustrated by the following couple of examples. American strategy in Vietnam, Israel's strategy of reprisals and deterrence policy vis-a-vis the Arabs, and the Arab strategy vis-a-vis the Israel. Allied overestimation of the success of strategic bombing in the Second World War at large. Japanese conception of what the American reaction to their attack on Pearl Harbor. These are some examples where we can see in the literature where the rational model did not give us good results. Furthermore, management experts like Henry Mintzberg from McGill University argues that we have an intended strategy. This is how we are going to do. But there are also some emergent concepts, emergent issues, emergent variables which will come and have an impact on our intended strategy. So we will end up with a very different strategy, which is the one which will be realized. Therefore, realized strategy and the deliberate strategy that we have in mind at the beginning are going in two different ways due to various reasons. The conceptual framework I am going to develop for this research is that many strategy and warfare critics argue that the upper echelons of the military leadership often could not act rationally, and they were compelled to utilize various non-rational variables or elements in strategy making in warfare. The proposed conceptual framework has four important variables: intuition of the strategist, experience of the strategist, imagination of the strategist, and emotions of the strategist. Therefore, all these variables will have an impact on the decision making. And this is my conceptual model. What I am planning to do is I am going to administer the questionnaire and the survey among 240 senior officers of the Army who are above the colonel level, and also I am going to spend the same questionnaire to find the validity and reliability with another group of officers from the forces in Canada. And also recently another university has come and joined us to do the same thing from Massey University, New Zealand. So by the end of the 3 country studies, I think we are in a position to come out with a strong argument whether non-rational variables are making a significant influence on strategy making at the military, high echelons of military level at large. Thank you.